Hello, everyone. I'll just wait a couple of minutes as people are getting into the room and getting their audio settled, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I hope everyone is doing well. I am Sharona Bollinger. I'm with the LGO admissions team, and I'm joined today by my colleague Pam Searle and a panel of amazing LGO alumni. Today, we will be talking about the ROI, or return of investment, of the LGO MS MBA dual degree between Sloan's School of Management and MIT's School of Engineering. We will approach this question from a few different definitions of ROI to try to illustrate the true value of the LGO experience. If you have questions along the way, please type them into the Q&A, and we will leave time towards the end to address some of them. So first, I want to thank the panel for joining us today, and I'll have everyone introduce themselves. So if you could just tell us a little about yourself, what you were doing before LGO, and what you have been up to since. So we'll start with Ling and go back in time. So to Yuthan, Amy, and then David.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ling Wang. I am working, prior to LGO, I was working at Boeing as a design engineer in payloads, and I was one of the Boeing sponsored students. So since LGO, I've been back at Boeing, and I'm currently working in my second rotation as a part of Boeing Capital Management, working on these airplanes. At LGO, I focused on aeroastro. Okay.
Sorry, I was on mute. Still not used to it. Hey guys, my name's Yuthan, LGO 19. Prior to LGO, I worked in the energy industry, upstream oil and gas as a project engineer. And at LGO, I did a master's in chemical engineering. Outside of LGO, I did 2 years after graduation at BCG. And then just last week, actually, I started a new role inside venture capital with a company called Energy Innovation Capital, looking at basically ways to help companies bridge the energy transition.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Goebel. I'm LGO from the class of 2017. Before LGO, I was working in an environmental consulting company. My specific role was focused on hazardous waste remediation and evaluating the human health impacts from contaminated waste sites. And in LGO, I studied engineering systems, which is unfortunately no longer available. I think it was the last class to be able to study that. And I did a sustainability certificate. And after LGO, I started working for Johnson & Johnson, starting in their contact lens business for about 2.5 years in Florida and then in Ireland. And at the beginning of this year, I moved into the pharmaceutical sector, and I'm currently located in Switzerland, where I'm working in large molecule supply chain.
All right, and hello everybody, my name is David Semko, LGO from the class of 2016, also engineering systems like Amy was, but unfortunately no longer available. Prior to my time at LGO, I spent 8 years active duty in the US Navy, primarily in nuclear engineering sector, mostly working on aircraft carriers. And post LGO, I started with Amazon. I've been there for just over 5 years now, and currently serving as a senior operations manager for a Amazon robotics site in the Milwaukee area.
Great. Thank you all again for taking the time to share your experiences with us today. So we will start with discussing some of the short-term versus long-term returns from LGO. So both what you get in the program and after the 2 years with MIT. There are some pretty immediate gains from joining the LGO program, often within the very first 3 months of the LGO summer core, such as getting to know your cohort. We try to build diverse classes that can learn from each other as much as they learn from their courses. And this is in addition to your MBA and engineering cohorts that you also have access to starting in the fall. LGO begins in June every year, and our classes spend the summer taking LGO specific curriculum that is a mix of some foundational business and engineering credits, as well as leadership development courses and some early networking events. The summers can be very busy, but it also prepares you for the fall and the rest of your time at MIT. If you have any concerns about transitioning back into school, I've heard that this is a good way to regain that mindset and really hit the ground running for the rest of your management and engineering classes. The summer is also a time when our students are very active on our student committees. So a lot of an LGO class's experience depends on them and what they prioritize. There is an internship committee, a committee that plans the annual domestic plant trek. There's a student life committee who plan fun stuff for the students and their families, and a director's advisory committee, just to name a few. So our students have a lot of influence and ownership over their specific LGO experience. I think the alumni here can speak more to some of the long-term value of the dual degree, but some examples are our amazing alumni network of over 1,300 alumni and the job potential that comes from having these two degrees. Having an MBA and an MS can give you a broader perspective and toolkit, which can allow you to be flexible among multiple functions or can more easily create opportunities to pivot into new areas and industries even later on in your career. So panel, coming into grad school, how did you define ROI if you did at all? And what are some examples of what you were considering valuable about the program at that time?
I can jump in with perhaps not a quantitative ROI, but certainly an important qualitative one for me. My career arc was I wanted my career to lead me towards solving environmental problems at scale, which is how I started in environmental consulting. I thought I wanted to, tackle serious issues, and that would be a way to do it. But that it necessarily involved solving problems after they had happened. So I had this vague idea that companies can prevent environmental issues in a way that aligns with their own financial incentives, and that I would probably need the business toolkit to make that case, as well as an engineering systems, industrial engineering toolkit to actually implement the change. So I wanted to build out those two toolkits and be able to pivot into a supply chain company. And over the course of the first couple of months, I decided that I wanted to go into a healthcare company because it seemed like those are mission-driven companies that might be more amenable to a sort of sustainability angle. And there is certainly a lot of low-hanging fruit. So my qualitative returns that I was looking for were those two sets of skill sets and the opportunity to pivot into a new sector, a new role, new type of company. And from my perspective, it was just check, check, check. all of the above.
Similar to Amy, I was also looking to do kind of a pivot into a more business kind of role. So I was doing engineering before, like strict design engineering, and I was really looking to try to find a way to go into more of a business. I realized that I wasn't having the impact that I was wanting to have on the direction of our business as a design engineer, and there wasn't a lot of options for me to just jump from being a design engineer into something more business role. So the way I approached LGO was I wanted to gain the skills and also gain the networks and open the doors for me to look for roles that were more business oriented. Hence, I'm in Boeing Capital now doing very business oriented tasks. And the other aspect of it was I didn't want to lose the technical, because I knew that, especially in the aerospace industry, the technical is very important no matter what role you're in. And I didn't have an aerospace background to begin with. I'm from mechanical engineering. So my LGO is also a way to just deepen my knowledge about technical aspects of the aerospace industry, including just airplane design, airport design, stuff like that. And Amy, it was check, check, check on all fronts.
Sure, I'll jump in here and say, I think much like the other panelists, I don't know that I had a firm definition on exactly, quantitatively what I was looking for ROI. I think certainly there's plenty of material out there. At least there was 2 years ago on like Poets and Quants and things like that. If you're looking for how do I define this mathematically, and I know that's something we are want to do as LGOs at times, but I think for me, I was certainly at the very definition of a career change, getting out of the military. There were things that even though I was doing that, and I know I was making this conscious transition into the business world, I kind of also knew that I wanted to create a foundation that sort of blended some of those technical aspects that I enjoyed about my roles in the military, as well as some of that sort of like on the ground, on the deck plate leadership experience that I had, and find ways to sort of articulate that in the corporate world. And so, I think as I looked through programs, LGO just jumped out at me as one that sort of had a good combination of building that technical foundation, but also that hands-on leadership experience as well.
Yeah, I'll just add on to, I agree with everything what everyone else said. I thought about it very qualitatively. That being said, if you look at the quantitative aspects, right, I think there's probably still numbers on the website, but the ROI there is, I think for most exit opportunities, post LGO is payback period in a matter of years. And then just the foundation, right, and the LGO playbook that it sets you up with is gonna, as far as later on career potential is immense and very, very positive, let's put it that way. I think the other complement to that is also the flexibility, right? So when I came into looking at different graduate school programs, deciding between other top MBA programs, the dual degree aspect gives you not only that business acumen, but also the technical, right? The technical bent and expertise and credibility. And that really opens up a variety of jobs to you, be it in, you name it, big tech, consulting, venture capital, partner companies. You really have that flexibility to really choose your path, given that you have a good foundation.
Yeah, I think you guys preempted me, because the kind of next area of talking about ROI is talking about kind of tangible and intangible returns, or the quantitative versus the qualitative value. So tangible or quantitative can also translate to job offers, increase in salary, increase in signing bonuses, or support for starting a new venture. So from that perspective, recent graduating LGO classes had a 65% increase in their annual salary in their new positions after graduating. 100% of job seekers from the class of the 2021 were employed by graduation, and 80% of them received a signing bonus. 56% of the LGO 21s also found a job through the LGO network, while another 23% use the Sloan Career Development Office to find a position post-grad. So those are just some statistics to give you a sense of what some of the very tangible career outcomes can be. But kind of talking about the other side of the potential qualitative values when completing the LGO program can include greater confidence to explore new industries or job functions, gaining new ways to solve problems and to lead, and perhaps a new perspective on future goals. Basically, the program is designed to encourage very rapid personal growth. So something else that might be difficult to quantify or even communicate effectively unless you've really experienced it is the sense of LGO community. A class of around 50 people that are all experiencing this rapid growth together and from each other can create a very tight-knit community and produces a pool of super engaged and enthusiastic alumni. So there's also not a hard line between tangible and intangible benefits. So for example, the LGO community can certainly have impact on your career outcomes, or your personal growth could be tied to developing your professional skill set. So I'll turn it over to the panel now to hear more about their specific career outcomes and also some of the more abstract benefits that LGO provided them. So maybe we can start with, what was the recruiting process like for you when you were getting ready to leave LGO?
Sure, I can jump in here and start. And for me, it was, at some level, was my first experience really at all with the recruiting process, because I had done an ROTC scholarship in college and knew I was going to be in the Navy directly out of college, and so I hadn't really experienced that process before. And so I think you know, I had I guess a constraint on my recruiting process, in that I was geographically focused on getting to a specific area of the country. And I think, you know, one of the advantages I had in my recruiting process, and certainly the thing that ended up bringing me to Amazon, amongst other things, was through our internship recruiting process the prior year, I had familiarity with the companies, the partner companies that we were interviewing with. I knew the faces that were coming in to interview again for recruiting. And so they were able to sort of kind of personalize and tailor some of the recruiting for me based on that understanding of where my geographic constraints were. And I was able to get a role that was maybe not most traditional for folks coming out of an MBA program into Amazon, but to get to a building in the area of the country that I wanted to be at. And I really do link that to the closeness of the LGO network, that tight relationship that we have with our partner companies, and sort of the familiarity that we get throughout the 2 years between the plant treks, the company visits, as well as the internship process.
I'll echo the point that the recruiting process, if you want, can start as early as the first touch points in the first couple of weeks of the program. The relationship with the partner companies is such that those touch points are a value add for the company. And I certainly, for me, it was a value add for me. So I had, I think I mentioned I figured out over the first couple of months of the program that I was interested in focusing on healthcare. So I built that into my time management. I made sure that I was attending all of the healthcare focused events, talking to the healthcare focused partner companies, so that I knew the people that were recruiting from those companies, and I had at least exposure on a fairly tangible way when I was going into those conversations. I was specifically looking for companies that had a rotational program, because I knew this was going to be my first step into the world of operations. And I didn't know if it was going to be the right fit, and I didn't know where in supply chain I wanted to land. So I was targeting companies that had that option, or at least would allow for rapid rotation within the first few years. And I found the partner companies were, because of the relationship that I had built over the first year and a half of the program before recruiting started, were much willing to let me in the door for that first interview, even though I didn't have that background in healthcare, than companies that I tried to recruit with outside of the LGO network. Like I didn't get very many interviews. I didn't get any interviews outside of the LGO network in the healthcare space before I got the offers from that I ended up getting from LGO partner companies during the fall recruiting session, and those were compelling. So I didn't feel like I needed to recruit any further.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I think Amy, you said it well. I think about it in 3 ways, right? So one is regarding the partner companies, right? It's the differentiating factor is, one, it's really top-notch partner companies, right? But they also come to you, right? It's almost like a concierge service versus a lot of other, if you think about a general MBA, you're doing a lot of outreach, so on and so forth. With LGO, one thing I really appreciate is right? The partner companies are organizing plant treks. You're able to have different sessions and actually classes where you learn about different partner companies and the different leaders in the partner companies. So that was quite a differentiating factor and quite advantageous for the LGO class. A second aspect, so I ultimately went into consulting, and beyond the playbook and the skill set that I think LGO prepares us for in the consulting world, but there was also a special recruitment, actually a truncated recruitment process for LGO specifically. So that, to me, that was pretty advantageous, given that, right, we did an internship with the partner company. So there was no drawback as far as full-time recruiting on the consulting side. And then the last point is, I think it's almost like you get your cake and you eat it too, in the sense that if you do want to do general recruiting, like if you want to recruit for startups, if you want to recruit for big tech or anything else of interest, right, or you eventually start your own startup, which we have classmates do, that's completely open to you when you choose what to do full time. So it's like you get all these additional resources, but you also have the flexibility to do the general MBA recruitment cycle.
So kind of addressing the other half of the qualitative quantitative equation is, can you either share how the LGO community has affected your career since you graduated, or even just sharing what the LGO community kind of meant to you when you were a student here?
I can start this one. So one of the things that drew me originally to LGO was the alumni community at Boeing specifically. It was the first group of folks who were, as a whole, just very helpful, wanting to help, and not just giving advice, but actually taking action to support your growth and development. And I wasn't even a student at that time. I wasn't even an alumni. And they were connecting me with each other. They were trying to find me opportunities to make me more for LGO, and it was just a very warming experience. And it's just gotten even better since. So like while I was on campus, obviously amazed by not just the Boeing alumni, but all the alumni who like reach out if I have ever had any questions about a company, even though alumni were very, very open to sharing, very honest with their opinions. And it was a really good way to compare what a job role would be like at Boeing versus other companies. And then since I've been back, every job role that I've gotten since the program right now, basically all I have to do is call an alumni and say, hey, I'm interested in your field, whether it's supply chain, operations, marketing, and I get phone calls back saying, hey, here are the opportunities. I get emails of like, hey, following up with you, you told me you were interested in this. Later, here's an opportunity that came up. Are you interested in applying? So it's just been overall like a very supportive network, both within Boeing and out. And at least I'm in Seattle. The Seattle alumni here get together pretty often, and we share stories. And I think we hung out last night. So it's a community that's continuing to give.
Sure, I'll echo. I think the network, and just from like a personal growth and personal community, I guess, standpoint, this to me is all the return I needed. I don't know that I can like highlight that anymore, but I think I don't know what it is. It's something about how this program is structured, the foundation it's built on, and kind of some of the giants who kind of preceded us in creating the program. But it does truly create like a family environment amongst your class and even outside of your class. And those relationships, I think, to me, are kind of utmost importance as we look forward to continuing through my professional career. I think all the flexibility, all the other things we talked about are really, really important. But having those folks that you have that shared experience with, that you have kind of a shared toolbox, shared understanding with, but that are then there for you as you kind of venture out into maybe a different branch at some point later in your career, or maybe something personally happens and you need those folks that you can rely on as well. those bonds that we formed as a class, certainly in my class, and I would imagine the other panelists would say the same. I think those are irreplaceable, and really, to me, one of the things I cherish the most about my time and about the program.
I'm going to try to give, I have too many examples, so I have 3, and I'll try to summarize them relatively succinctly. So one is the LGO Alumni Network at J&J. It's a relatively small group, but still understands the value of the skill set that the alumni are bringing. So I have been in touch with this network. And as a result of this network, I am now on the succession plan for a plant manager in the pharmaceutical network, which is not something that I would otherwise be at this point in my career because the current plant manager is an alumna. Second example is I actually got inspiration and a very useful technical idea on the basis of internship work that was done through LGO. Not my internship, this was someone else's internship that I was able to attend the kind of final report out presentation on. So very, very tangible, like I want to use that. I've downloaded his thesis and I'm trying to get people to work on it. And the third one is more in that kind of community, the alumni network from my class directly. There's something that I find just wonderful about having that community of people who have been through this experience together. So there's that sense of trust and community, but it's people who think in deep ways about big problems. So I am in touch on nearly a daily basis with a few members of my class as we try to think, how do we use our positions within the business community to drive more leadership when it comes to addressing distribution of vaccines, challenges like intellectual property as we do technology transfer to other parts of the world, and addressing climate change. Like these are the conversations that I get to have with my class, because it's a truly special group of people.
Great, thank you. So I think that is a nice lead into our next area, which is just highlighting what's unique to LGO and what is unusually beneficial for this specific program. So when applying to grad school, kind of the 2 biggest concerns when you're thinking about investment are time and money. And so I think LGO is well set up to address those concerns, both because you're kind of getting an accelerated 2-year timeline for 2 full degrees. So what would otherwise be around 4 years of time, you're doing in just 24 months. And we're also able to offer fairly generous financial support. So you've heard our alumni reference our partner companies, and LGO is a pretty unique model in how we're structured and how we're what we're able to offer our students because of these relationships with our partner companies. So currently we're working with 23 industry partner companies who enable us to have robust networking and recruiting opportunities, as well as our LGO fellowship and the 6-month research internship that you've also heard discussed in this webinar so far. So every student who is admitted into LGO who is not already fully sponsored will receive an LGO fellowship. And on average, the fellowship covers at least half of total tuition. So likely one of the 2 years will be covered, if not more. There's no additional process or steps to be considered for an LGO fellowship. It's just part of our admissions process. And another unique facet of LGO is the guaranteed research internship. So for 6 months of your 2 years, you're matched with a project from one of our partner companies. There's an interviewing and matching process to be placed at an internship. So you do have some say over what you're going to be doing and where you'll be doing it. But while you're on internship, you're working full time with the company, you're not taking classes or paying tuition, and are provided a cost of living stipend during that time. And the research that you do for those 6 months is what the master's thesis is based on. So you heard Amy reference the thesis product, the kind of product that is resulting from an LGO thesis can, they're all amazing and can continue to be relevant in for a lot of companies in a lot of different industries. And the thesis and the internship are also advised by both a Sloan faculty member and a faculty member from your engineering department. So maybe we can start with the panel's experience or memories of their internship and how that went and how maybe any lessons you learned carried into your career after LGO.
I can start. So I interned at Pratt & Whitney in their repair station in East Hartford. So the internship experience is actually really applicable to my current job role. For your internship, you basically have 6 months, you get like a vague project, and then you go figure out how to do it. You figure out all your stakeholders, you figure out your problem, and you solve it and you deliver something. The rotation program I'm in right now is very similar, but for 6 years. So my current job role, it's 9 months. I have a general vague idea, like go fix this record process, go figure out how you fix it, and then deliver something at the end. So it's almost just like a duplication of the process I went through during my internship. Not to mention, because I was in a repair station and now I'm working on leased airplanes, so it's all just like working on older airplanes. The details that I learned at that job are actually very applicable to my current job role. And I've actually been in communication with my manager when I was on internship, who is also an LGO alum. And we've been chit-chatting back and forth about just the worked on and just like sharing lessons learned for how engines and how to go about evaluating repaired engines. So definitely very impactful for me, very useful to my immediate job role, more so than I would have expected. I thought, I'm going to do this repair station thing for 6 months and I'm going to leave it and never have to talk about it again. And lo and behold, it's a part of my daily life now.
Sure, I'll jump in for my internship. I actually had the opportunity to intern with a company that Li & Fung, which is no longer a partner company, I don't believe, but in Hong Kong. And so, my experience, as I mentioned, in the military before this was pretty regimented and pretty hierarchical, and got kind of instantly thrown in to an internship project in a company that really didn't look anything like that, in a culture that was nothing like I was familiar with. And so I think for me, when I look back at what did I gain from that? There were certainly some things I looked at in from a technical aspect and how to look at their processes. But for me, the soft skills as well from that experience of kind of immersing myself in a different culture, learning how to sort of adjust my leadership style, my communication style to deliver change that was tangible in a short period of time. I've now been in 4 or 5 different roles in 3 different locations with Amazon. I find myself continually kind of leaning on those skills and those experiences to sort of adapt my leadership style to kind of influence change and influence teams in ways that help kind of achieve what the missions that we're going for. So I think that was probably not an area that I thought the internship would challenge me as much as it did, and frankly not an area I thought Amazon would challenge me as much as it has. But those kind of soft skills from the L part of LGO, I guess, were really helpful to me.
I did my internship at Quest Diagnostics, which is also no longer a partner company. My project was focused on implementing a total productive maintenance program in one of their diagnostic laboratory facilities, the large one that's in Marlborough, Massachusetts. That required a lot of working with the people that were on the proverbial shop floor, the technicians that were operating these large high volume machines that would process lots of specimens to give results and say whether people were healthy or not. And the thing that I'd say I had 2 main takeaways from that. One was that structure drives behavior. That is the lesson that we learned in theory on day 1 of operations management, but I could see up close and personal that the throughput, that my ability to make this change was very much dependent on the availability of the operators to give me their time, to give me their expertise, to learn what I was trying to teach them, to teach me the processes and the challenges that they were facing. And that was the biggest constraint, not because they weren't willing to help, not because they were lazy, but because the pressures and priorities from management were to decrease headcount, to increase productivity, which meant that I was not able to engage with them as much as I would have liked. So structure really drove behavior. And the other thing, to echo what Ling said, that idea of being able to take an amorphous problem statement and be diligent and creative in figuring out who I need to talk to. How do I get this answer when the data isn't readily available, the people are busy? That is a skill that I unfortunately use on a weekly basis in my current job.
Yeah, I just add on here. As you guys know, leaders in industry more and more require a bit of that, not only that technical expertise, but also that ability to round that out with a very strategic management mindset. And I felt, at least for me, the internship was really a great way to put that into practice. So for me, I did my internship at Amgen. Great plug there. It's a great partner company, still one of the top partner companies getting full-time LGOs. In my internship, I did build a machine learning algorithm, and actually, very fortunately, it went through. The end result there is it's actually was put in pilots and into production. Ultimately, actually got a patent on it, which was felt very fortunate to get that. But that was just the technical side. I think the part that was really helpful, and the reason why it went into production is in working through with the team to get into production, was a lot of the skills you learn with LGO, with some of the classes on organizational processes, on how to deal with stakeholders, on how to communicate with senior stakeholders, and things like that. And I think LGO having the ability to, again, marry that technical side with how to really push change in a large organization really enabled that internship project to be successful. And then, of course, those skills you carry forward throughout your career. So it's a great testing ground, and it's a great experience.
Great, thank you. So I think we'll take one or two questions from the chat very quickly to finish up. So I think there's a question about how the management classes and the management classes and the engineering classes are blended. So how are we kind of able to balance the MBA and the MS in only 2 years? So maybe if one or two of the panel could talk about how they approached their classes and how they dealt with that balance between the two sides.
Sure, I'll go. I mean, I think the integration starts in the summer. So there's a combination of those management and engineering type courses that build that foundation for the LGO class. And in the summer there, I think then there becomes a lot of flexibility. It is a bit of, at least it was for me, and I imagine it is still true today, a bit of a choose your own adventure in terms of finding opportunities to take courses that kind of meet the requirements that you have, and you may have some cross-listed classes that kind of allow you to kind of operate in both spheres, if you will. But I certainly had business classes that had engineering students in them, and I had engineering classes that had business students in them, and so I think it's pretty natural meshing of the two, especially at a place like MIT.
Great, thank you. And then another question from the chat, and maybe this is a good question for Amy, but how has the panel found themselves more viable in a global or international setting in terms of opportunities and skills that you've gained from LGO?
I'd say one of the optional programs that you can do is International Plant Trek, which is organized by students. You pick a country or a region and visit manufacturing facilities, supply chain locations in a different part of the world. And I'd say that is exposure that I certainly did not have before the LGO program. And it brought to life, again, some of the things that we saw in theory on paper. Like we learned that there are frameworks for evaluating. If you pick where you want to put your next manufacturing facility, you might look at the economics, the political situation, the infrastructure, the competence of the population there. But I got to go to a Honda motorcycle plant in Manaus in Brazil and see that the line was stopped for an hour and a half because they had a power outage. So they had the competence, they had some infrastructure, but that is one of the implications. Like that type of intuition that you develop by getting exposure to not just international multinational companies, but actually international locations is something that I certainly was able to carry forward in my career.
Thank you. So we are at time. So I want to thank you all again for joining us today. I hope this session was helpful in thinking about applying to MIT LGO. Just some quick announcements. The application for this year is now open. The round 1 deadline is September 28th and the round 2 deadline is December 1st. So we definitely encourage you to attend more upcoming LGO events, and we have weekly virtual coffee chats and some more webinars planned, one about the engineering departments and one about the internship process. So if you have any questions there, I definitely encourage you to check those out. We also hope to have more information about LGO's preview day coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. If you have more questions, please feel free to reach out to LGO at lgo@mit.edu. We're happy to answer questions at any point in the process. So I want to thank our panel again. It was great hearing from alumni at various stages of your career and to learn more about what LGO can provide. So I hope everyone has a great day, and thanks again for joining us.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.